Hey, everybody, welcome to Positively Psych with Rod Loudon. Today's guest is an actor, musician, and songwriter. He has appeared in roughly 40 films and television shows, including the Sundance Grand Jury winning film, Ruby in Paradise, The Man in the Moon, The Wonder Years, and Shark Attack, to name a few. He comes from a line of actors. His grandfather, Robert Mitchum, is an Academy Award nominee, and his father, Christopher Mitchum, is known widely in part for his work with John Wayne in classics such as Rio Grande and Big Jake. And his father also won several awards. Bentley got his start in acting, starring with his grandfather and father in Paradise. Wait, I got it somewhere here. Movie Paradise Promises to Keep. That's it. CBS production Promises to Keep. And currently, Bentley is the bass player for the Corey Feldman Band. They just wrapped up a tour opening for Lip Biscuit, I think on their 2024 Loserville tour. And he is also working on his solo project right now, Deep Soul. Please welcome to Positively Psych with Rod Loudon, Mr. Bentley, my good old friend Mitchum.
Thanks for having me, Rod. Excited
Thanks
to
for
be
being here. So recently, my wife had never seen The Man in the Moon.
Really?
Which you starred in, and that was Reese Witherspoon's first film. Is that correct?
It was, and there's actually a funny story behind that movie because when I auditioned for that, there was a lady who's passed away since then, who was a casting lady, and she really fell in love with me for the part. But there was an other unknown actor who some of the other people liked as well. So it was kind of between the two of us for this role. And she really wanted me instead of this other guy. So the director was already in Louisiana where we filmed, and she sent my tape to the director and hid the other actor's tape. And so, of course, he saw mine, was like, okay, we'll go with him. And I ended up getting the role. The other actor was this actor named Brad Pitt. And
Wow.
while I'm filming the film in Louisiana, Brad auditions for and gets Thelma and Louise. And
Oh, wow.
had he gotten Man in the Moon, he wouldn't have been available to audition for and get Thelma and Louise, which started his career. So I have a small percentage in Brad's career just by osmosis or
Right.
something.
For beating him out for the role.
I beat him
And
for a role.
and then also you starred in Ashley Judd's first movie, right? The
Yeah, that was
Ruby
a
in
really
Paradise.
that was a really wonderful piece. Victor Nunez wrote and directed it, low budget, and it's really just a slice of life film. A lot of women really related to that film. I didn't get it so much when I was filming it. I knew it was going to be good, but I don't always get the slower drama films sometimes, you know. And my character in that one, I did short sales as a stock broker. And I'm still kind of confused on how that works. So I was playing a character who was really good at something that I don't even really comprehend. The movie
Right.
ended up being a success. And I remember after it came out, my character in that movie, I play someone who it's not the first time I've done it in a movie, but I play a character who kind of gets drunk and tries to push myself on Ashley, date raper, so to speak.
Wait, didn't you do that in The Man in the Moon? Are
I
you
did
being
that, and that's why I
typecast?
said it's not the first time. um, so, and it's not typecasting, it's not how I am in
I know,
real life.
I'm joking.
But it's funny because I was going to say after that movie Ruby in Paradise came out, I wanted to go see it in the theaters, and it was released in art theaters pretty much throughout America. And they had a little art theater in Santa Monica, and someone was going back to see the movie again, and I was standing in line behind him, and I looked different than I did in the movie because some time had passed, but she turned around and saw me there and had a visceral reaction to me, I scared her, and then she realized it was me, and then she goes, "Oh, I don't like you. I don't like you." And I'm like, it was just a character. It was just a character.
I'm a really nice guy.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
full of love.
So yeah, but that
Right.
film did well, and it definitely catapulted Ashley's career. She took
Yeah,
off after that.
that's pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then on the Wonder Years, you did a number of episodes. You were the older brother of
Winnie Cooper.
Winnie,
Yeah. I was
and
in
then
the
they killed
pilot
you off in
episode.
Vietnam.
It's a funny story on that too. Um, they did the pilot and they filmed it and they aired it after the Super Bowl, and I think 88, somewhere in there. And the numbers were great. They had this great show on their hands, so they made the orders to get the other episodes going. And they realized they made a faux pas because my character in the pilot episode dies in Vietnam.
Oh
And
no.
they're getting all this fan mail in saying, "Why did you kill Brian Cooper? He was cool. We liked Brian Cooper. What are you killing him for?" So now they're with this conundrum of what do we do? The fans like the character we killed in the very first episode. So they have this idea that they bring me back as a ghost. I don't know where that idea came from, but I did an episode or two where I came back as a ghost, and I think they realized that the whole ghost thing really didn't fit with the feeling of the Wonder Years, and so I kind of just went away, and that was the last you saw of me. You still see pictures of me on the wall in every show and everything. And I was recently contacted by the new Wonder Years, where it's the African American version, and I guess they used some images from me as Brian Cooper from the original Wonder Years in that, so they had contacted me. But what they decided to do was make me a ghost. And what I don't understand is why they just didn't bring me back halfway through the first season or something and saying it was a mistaken death. It's an easy one.
Right.
It happened in Vietnam,
We found him in a hut.
right? They thought I was dead. I was
We
actually a
just nursed back to
POW.
health by a
They could
woman and her
have,
goat.
they could have actually addressed a whole bunch of the POW, coming back from
Yeah.
Vietnam stuff that was going on then.
Maybe they just didn't want to get into all that war stuff. Who
Too
knows?
political, yeah. But
Right.
that was it, and people still remember that. People still were like, "That was
Yeah.
you."
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then oh, I remember another cool story of yours. And let me just say, so Bentley and I think we've known each other since about 1989.
89,
And
October 89.
somehow we met and we got in a band together called
Mm-hmm.
Mystic Day. And we were jamming out at the Roxy and Club Lingerie and FM station back in the day. So Bentley and I go way back. And I'm not sure how we met. I was trying to think, how did I
Well,
meet you?
it was because I was cast in that movie Rich Girl with Lex,
Oh, right.
and you were good. I think you're either roommates or good friends with Lex.
Right. Lex
And,
Lang.
and yeah, Lex Lang, the voiceover extraordinaire artist. And I was cast to play bass in this fictional band, and I wanted to make sure that my fingering matched the actual bass, so that musicians watching the movie would know that I was really playing what was being played.
Right.
And I had no idea how to do that. I'd played guitar up until that point, and so Lex said, "Well, why don't you just stay at my house during the filming of this? We'll rehearse the songs, we'll play them live." And that's when I came over and met you.
So that was at the Beavis house?
That was at the Beavis house, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds familiar because I
Like
remember
October,
I'm an
November.
extra in that movie.
Mhm. Like, I met my first ex-wife during that movie.
Wow. Small world.
Yeah.
But getting back, circling back now, uh, you got to tell the story of, I think it's called Little John.
Oh, the Indian film?
Yeah.
Well, it was early 2000s, late 1900s. Yeah, and I get a
Yeah.
call from my agent saying they're doing a movie over in India. Do you want to put yourself on tape for it? And I'm like, why not? And
Sure.
then my agents get back to me and they say I landed it. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. So I guess I'm going to India. And I know nothing about the film. I still haven't gotten a script. I just know that the director is really well respected in India, and the my female co-star is kind of like the Julia Roberts of India during Julia Roberts' heyday, like that kind of equivalent career.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm figuring the script has to be good, and Indian films don't have a lot of promiscuity. They're pretty family friendly films. So I'm
Sure.
thinking it's a safe bet, even though I haven't seen the script. And I've always wanted to go to India. This sounds like a great opportunity. Pack up and go there. It was quite an experience. The everything that I was promised in my contract, they didn't do one thing. Um, it was horrible. I was contracted to do one movie when I got there. I found out that I was actually making three movies, one in English, one in Tamil, and one in Hindi. So what they would
Wow.
do is they'd set up the shot. I would film the scene. They'd fly out the actors. I would stay there. Then they'd fly in the Tamil actors, and I'd do the scene in Tamil, speaking in Tamil. Then they'd fly them out, and then they'd fly in the Hindi family, and I'd do the same scene a third time now in Hindi. And we did the entire movie this way. Plus, I didn't know this, but all Indian films, at least I think all of them, have a thing where for no reason at all, they'll just break into song and dance numbers.
Right.
And for no
Oh,
reason. And I didn't know this. I'd never seen an Indian film. And one day, we're weeks into shooting, I still haven't gotten a script. And one day we're taken out into the location, and I'm sitting in a jungle with a guitar, and I'm singing the song to her in Hindi. And I'm like, I stop. I said to the director, I'm like, what is going on here? Why am I in the middle of a jungle singing a song to her? It doesn't make any sense. And he's like, oh no, it's the musical number. I'm like, yes, but where is it in the movie? Like, what's right before this? Why am I doing this? That's when they realized I had never seen an Indian film. So that night they took me out, and I went and saw the concept of what an Indian film is. And they explained to me that the economy is pretty poor over there for a lot of the population. And so when they get enough money together to go see the movies, they want to see comedy, drama, singing, dancing, the hero running, the excitement, the
full
love,
buffet.
everything in that 2 hours that they paid their money for. And if it makes sense or not, they're suddenly just going to break into you dancing and singing because they want to see singing and dancing. And that's kind of
But
how they.
you didn't sing and dance on your audition tape, did you?
I didn't even know I was going to be doing that, Rod. So I'm over there in India, and I'm doing, these Indian folk dances, and I'm singing, dancing around with all these Indian people. And I'm like, what am I doing? And then I realized some contractual stuff was way off. And so
Right.
I got really upset with them. And I went into them and I was like, look, you guys, you contracted me to do one movie and I'm doing three. You contracted me for this and you're giving me this. And I just went down the list. And I said, every single thing on my contract, you haven't honored one of them, how it's contracted. It's either kind of it or not at all. And if you go through what I said I would do, I've done every single thing I said I would do. I've shown up on time. I've been prepared. I'm here. I'm ready to go. Every day I'm here and I'm professional. You guys aren't. I want to go home. And they're like, what? Because it's like a 3 month shoot and we're a month into it. I waited the first month until I did this.
Right.
Okay. And I'm like, yeah, just get me a ticket home. I'm out of here. They're like, what do you mean? We still have the rest of the movie. And I said, yeah, but you guys aren't holding up to your end of the contract. So as far as I can tell, this is null and void. So just get me my ticket out of here. They go, what do you want? What do you want? I said, well, a huge salary increase would be nice since I'm making three movies instead of one. Equal dressing rooms to my co-star would be nice instead of putting her in a mansion and me in the storage closet. Little things that you said in the contract would be nice. These kind of things. And they're like, oh, well, we can't do anything with the salary. And I said, cool, I'll take my ticket. And they're like, oh, but we can give you a bonus. I said, I don't care what you call it. If you make it right, I'll stay and finish the movie. So they did give me some more money, and they said they were going to do all this stuff for my living accommodations because I was living in squalor, man. The house they put me in
Wow.
I'm in India and there's no air conditioning. The
Right.
electricity in the bathroom doesn't work. So I have cold water. The water's not hot, and there's no electricity, so I can't shave. It's dark in the bathroom. My bedroom is like a sauna. Complaining about the heat, so they bring in a fan that's about 8 feet in diameter. It's like a jet fan from an airplane. And so when I'm laying in bed, I'm like the old, the JVC or whatever it is, the JBL commercials or whatever. I can't
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
PDK or whatever it was, where the sound is just blowing back. That was me trying to sleep. And of course, it's sound and you're trying to sleep. So I
Right.
was miserable. I was miserable. I was also told that I would have if I'm not going to be in a hotel, that they would give me my own private chef that is international. And okay, cool. But I get there and he only knows Indian food, which is great because I like Indian food and I want to know like organic home cooked Indian food, not from an American restaurant. But after the first week or so, I'd like something else at some point. I can't do 3 months of this, right? And so
Right.
all these kind of issues that they didn't hold up their end started to become an issue. I knew if I made a problem up front that they wouldn't have worked with me. I waited the month. They ended up making it right. And as a result, and I think it was 2000, 2001, this little film called Little John came out, and it's a story of an American who goes to India to study a ring, basically a nose ring that gets stolen, and they think he stole it because he's studying over there. And in the process of running from the police, he goes to a Swami who he'd been talking to about this ring. And the Swami, who's kind of like a Three Stooges Swami, throws some powder on him to make him invisible, and it ends up shrinking him down to 6 inches. And so for the whole rest of the movie, I'm running around at 6 inches tall, trying to just find the ring and save the movie. And it turns out that the only way that I can get the ring back is if I was 6 inches tall in order to get into the space. So I become the hero by being 6 inches tall and save the day. And the movie did a lot of green screen work because I was 6 inches tall. We didn't have the computers like we do these days. So a lot of
Right.
green screen. And it's a really cute film. And the 90s kids in India, when this movie came out, they really liked it and they really love it. And still to this day, daily, I get fans from India reaching out on my Instagram going, "Sir, you were my childhood crush," or "Sir," they all call me John. They're, "Sir John, you were my childhood favorite. I love you. Thank you for my childhood." And these really wonderful, heartfelt messages from these people. And of course, I always try to write them back because it's so touching that they, after all these years, reach out. And they're always like, "When are you coming back to India?" And it's hard to explain to them that I'm not the one who produces the movie. I get the
Right.
calls to go there. And so I have to tell them, look, if they ever do a Little John 2, I'm there in a heartbeat. But I'm not the guy who gets that going. I don't live there. I don't have a
Sure.
production company. But if you know someone, put the bug in their ear and I'll come back and make Little John 2. Why not? So it's
What a great story.
another funny thing about it, Rod, is if you go to my followers on Instagram, it looks like I
Right.
bought half my followers because half of them are from India, but they're actually
And
real
the guy's
followers,
going, this guy's using bots. Look at
right?
all
That's
these
what it looks
people
like.
from India.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, and what a great story and a great memory. And yeah, is the English version available? Do you even know if we can get it here in the States? Find it somewhere?
I saw a version on Amazon actually. If you,
Okay.
I don't know if it's still there,
Right.
and it might be the Tamil version with subtitles.
Okay.
So if
Well,
you,
whatever. I got to check that out
yeah,
for sure.
it's cute, it's funny, it's fun, it's family friendly. And I think the version on Amazon might have the song and dance numbers cut out, but I'm not sure
Oh,
because one of them
okay.
has song and dance cut out.
Right. Well, anyway, cool story. God, I remember also, some memories are coming back. Went to one of your film premieres in Hollywood somewhere. I think it was called Teenage Bonnie and Klepto Clyde.
Yeah, yeah. That was a film I filmed in Utah with Scott Wolf and Maureen Flanagan. She was that girl on that show that would stop time or whatever as a kid. I can't remember the Out of This World or something anyway.
Okay.
And I got to work with Father Guido Sarducci on that
Oh
one.
my God.
Yeah, he actually was in that movie. And it was actually a really fun, cute movie. And it was one of those movies that just, I think came out and went straight to DVD or video. And I hadn't heard from it in years, Rod. And it's the funniest thing because I'm at a convention about a month ago, and the actor who played Leland in Twin Peaks, the father of Laura, the girl who died, is there and he's signing stuff. And I go over to say hi to him. And the guy who's sitting with him recognizes me from, of all things, Teenage Bonnie and Klepto Clyde.
Oh
And
my God.
I couldn't even believe he knew of the movie, much less recognized me from it. And he's like, "Dude, I love that movie. That's such a little gem. I love that movie." And I think you're the only person who's ever told me that, bro. But how funny, what a small world.
Another film to go searching for, my
Yeah, well,
friend.
you just brought it up, and I hadn't thought of that movie in ages, and it's just last month,
Yeah.
and now you.
I don't, and it's so long, I don't remember much about it, but just you kind of in a headband and driving around in a Jeep.
Yeah, yeah, I played kind of like the rock and roll loser boyfriend. and Scott Wolf, and my girlfriend is Bonnie, and Scott Wolf plays Clyde, and he kind of steals her away from me to go on this crime spree with her. So I'm kind of like a
Okay,
supporting to their Bonnie and Clyde.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So at some point, you know, you and I, we meet, and I think you were with who we affectionately called at that time Madman Martin, and you and him were writing songs. And my brother is a drummer, and we said, let's the four of us get together. And it was the late '80s, early '90s. There's a transition going on there, and I look back at that period of time as great fun, but also just how clueless, at least I was, in terms of how to make any of this stuff work. We had no management, we had no producer, we had no one kind of guiding us. And one of the stories I like to tell is, I think through one of your connections, you got Aerosmith's manager or someone on Aerosmith's team to come to our practice. And we're practicing in that converted living room with all the egg cartons and all this stuff. And they walk in and we just keep playing and we don't stop. And like, what are we supposed to do here? And then they just walked out. And I always say, why didn't we stop playing and say, hello, we're the band, let's talk. I don't know what we were thinking. Do you remember that?
At that time, bro, we were probably living our own fantasy world that they were coming to cheer us.
Yeah. Who knows?
Go
But I
look.
do remember that at that point I said, okay, that's the best shot I'm getting. I'm going back to graduate school.
They,
I don't want to be old and poor. I'm going to go back and because I had been in Fort Lauderdale working on my doctorate when I decided to come out to Hollywood to go to rock and roll music school, and that's how I ended up in California, and how I ended up meeting you. And so the greatest decision I ever made. It's always good, young people out there, take risks. If you have the question, what if, go answer it,
you
go
know,
find it.
the music scene was so different back then too. I mean,
Oh
we
my God, yeah.
only had half of the stuff that these kids have these days.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, if we wanted to play at any of those clubs you mentioned earlier, we had to go and sell all the tickets
Oh
to
yeah, pay
our
to play.
friends. And I don't know if they still do that. I haven't done that
Mm.
since Mystic Day,
Yeah.
but it's like a
You
it's
didn't
the
do that with Lexus band, Velvet Box?
no, we didn't play clubs. We just did special engagements like the Edge TV party and like Sydney Pollock or somebody's Oscar party somewhere, things like this.
Right.
But
And that's another interesting thing, after our band kind of just went like this, um, you then joined Lex, and then years later, I'm in the Lex Lang band, and we are playing clubs. And so it's crazy small world, and
yeah,
yeah, so
that's
very cool
fun.
times, very fun times. I
Yeah.
remember when we played the Roxy, and it seems like we were always on the bill with BB Chung King and the
Maybe
Buddha Heads. I
uh-huh.
think it's like we're
Martin
playing with
Up,
those guys again. And
Martin
we went
Up.
on at Roxy Saturday night. I remember at like midnight. And at that time, I was working as a limo driver for a businessman, and I lived in his back house. And he would call me and say, "Rod, I want to go here. I want to go there." And so I got the limo that night, and someone to drive us. And so we show up to the Roxy, climbing out of a limo, and then afterwards we're in the side alley there. We got a ton of people packed into the limo, and we're all partying like
Hard.
rock stars.
That was fun, man. I remember
Oh,
that
good
show.
times,
I remember
good
that
times.
show. But if we had like the social media and the way they organize stuff, we would have had also um, access to information of what to be doing. Because we were just flying
Exactly.
the seat of our pants being a band, hoping that if we played alive long enough, someone would see us and take interest in managing or producing or whatever,
Right.
and then hopefully giving out tapes to people we meet. And it's like, how else do you do it back then?
I remember making flyers and posting flyers.
Uh-huh. Like people don't do that these days. It's like all digital flyers.
Yeah. So tell me about how you got hooked up with the Corey Feldman band.
Well, that's an interesting story. Back in 1991, I did a movie. It was called Happy Campers at the time we filmed it. It was a summer camping movie, kind of TNA, Porky's-esque kind of film. And the lead in it was Corey Feldman, and I played it was like a summer camp thing. And he was the head counselor at one camp, and I was the head counselor at the other camp, that they were competing in their water sports competition for whoever wins the camp kind of thing.
Right, right.
And so that's when I met Corey. We didn't really hit it off. We didn't not hit it off. We weren't like best buds or anything. At that time, I was partying pretty hard. It was a summer camp movie. There was tons of extras that were Playboy bunnies, and I mean, what's a young guy to do? And at the same time, what I didn't know was that Corey had just gotten out of rehab, and so he was staying kind of separate from all of us that were partying like crazy, fighting for his life to stay sober over there. But I kind of took it as at the time, like, oh, he's too good to hang out with all the actors, because I didn't know. I didn't know.
Right.
And so maybe I had a little judgment on him that he thought he was better than us and didn't hang out. And so I didn't really get like this with him at the time. I thought him as a friend, I thought him as an acquaintance. And then years passed after that movie. And I went through some, I'm sure we'll probably bring it up in a minute, but I went through some crap a few years ago. And during that, a mutual friend of Alexa's, who we've mentioned a couple times, and mine, she was going through a horrible time. And so,
Bobby.
yeah, Bobby. And so I got in touch with Bobby and was talking with Bobby, and she was in touch with Corey, and because of her husband. And so she was talking with Corey and talking with me and saying, you know, the stuff that you're saying and the stuff that Corey's saying, you two should be talking to each other. You both know each other. You've met each other. You've worked together. Why aren't you talking to each other? And my attitude was kind of like, well, if he wants to call me, give him my number. And his attitude was, well, if he wants to call me, give him my number. And so neither one of us called. Months go by. And then finally I'm at Bobby's house, and she calls Corey and puts me on the phone with him, and I ended up talking with him for like an hour and a half, and it was great. We like rejoined, and we did have so much in common about a lot of things we were talking about. And he invited me to a poker night at his house, an industry poker night where it's just people in the business, so you can let your hair down and not worry about it ending up on TMZ kind of thing. And so we went to that. And that was a lot of fun, met a lot of cool people. And then one night I'm sitting there, and he comes out from the back room. He's like, "Hey, Bentley, you want to play bass for my band? I'm doing a gig at the Whiskey on the 22nd." And I said, "Well, that's actually my birthday, and I guess I could do that for my birthday. But more importantly, Corey, I'm not really a bass player. I play guitar. I've never really played bass." And he's like, "Well, you can learn, right?" I was like, "Well, I guess I can. It's not that much different than guitar. Playing bass is easy. Playing it good is hard, you know." And so I was
Right.
like, I can get by at least for the show he wants to do. So we jumped into rehearsals. We did the show. It was my first time playing live bass on a stage. I was petrified, worried I was going to screw up Corey's show because he already gets a lot of eyes on him anyway. And the show went well, and he got a lot of offers to start touring. And he said, "You want to go on tour with me?" And I was like, "I guess, sure, why not?" And I talked with Bobby about it. It's my girl, Bobby. And we weighed the pluses and the minuses and said, let's do it. And that happened in 2022. And I've been playing bass for his band ever since. We just played with Limp Bizkit all summer. That was really cool on a national tour. It was really cool. When you're a kid, at
How
least
many cities?
24, I think.
Wow.
I think it was 24. But when you're a kid, at least when I was a kid, I I would rock out to Kiss or whoever in my room, and I would see
Right.
myself on stage, even though it was all in my head, and I'm just
Yeah.
rocking up. And I actually got to experience that with like a
Yeah.
huge
You
40,000.
got to live the dream.
Uh-huh. And how cool. I mean, whether people like the band or not, from my perspective, I got to see that. And that was really cool.
Sure.
And so I enjoyed that. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
That's how I
Certainly.
got rehooked up with Corey, to answer your
Yeah.
long story of how I got rehooked up.
That's awesome, man. And as you were talking about summer camp, were you also in like Meatballs 4?
Well, that's part of the story. Is halfway through the making of that summer camp movie, they changed the title to Meatballs 4, and
Ah,
that is Meatballs 4, the movie I just told. Yeah, we didn't know
that's cool.
we didn't know there was Meatballs 2 and 3, much less a fourth one. And we didn't know
Right.
we were making a Meatballs movie, but I guess the producers wanted to capitalize on the franchise, you know.
Sure. Made a deal with somebody.
It happens.
Yeah. So now tell me about Deep Soul.
Deep Soul. Well, as you know, Rob, but your listeners might not know, about 5 years ish ago, maybe six. It's 6 years ago right now, actually. 6 years ago today, I was sitting in the hospital,
Wow. Yeah.
and then 4 days from now, my daughter passed away.
Right.
Right. So, I have a daughter who's living in LA. I'm living in Texas at the time. I get a phone call. My daughter's been found unresponsive. I better get out there. I'm like, what do you mean? They said, just get out here. I get out there, and I arrive at like 1 in the morning. I go to UCLA Medical Center, and my daughter is being kept alive by machines, basically. And I ask the doctor what's going on. He can't tell me anything. I asked if they test for drugs, and they said that they have. And the only thing that they found was a little THC. And I said, this is 6 years ago. And so I said, well, check for fentanyl. Because back then, if you remember, it was really a big crisis. It still is, but
Sure.
it was like it was in the news. So I was like, check for fentanyl. And they said, we did, but we'll do it again. So they ran a second test, same results, no fentanyl, um, little THC, and they're baffled. They can't figure out what it is. I'm freaking out. I can't figure out why my daughter's in basically a coma. Um, about 3 days into it, I guess I realized that no matter how much I tried to manipulate the situation positively or negatively, I can't lie myself out of this one. That this was out of my hands. That my daughter was going to pass away, or she was going to live on terms that are beyond my say. And I wasn't ever somebody who was raised with religion or God. Um, but in retrospect, I think that was the first moment where I really got hit with like God awareness, because I realized that I couldn't do anything and it was out of my hands, and that could either freak me out or I could kind of turn it over to the grand plan, for lack of better terms. And I don't know why it happened, but I just like felt a calm come over me, where I felt like I raised my daughter well enough to make the decision. She's probably deciding whether to come back or move on. And I have to trust how I raised her. I have to trust God, even though I wasn't raised with God or religion. I have to trust God of whatever happens, that this is how it's supposed to happen. And on July 4th, my daughter ended up passing away. And I went back to Texas, and my family was like, you need to move out to California. You don't know anyone in Texas. This is a horrible time for you. So I packed everything and moved to Santa Barbara. And not long after I moved there, my health went, and I had diverticulitis. And so they were watching that really closely, and they did a minor operation on me where I had some tubes in me. And right at that time, my fiance, her grandmother was turning 96 in New Jersey. And she's like, I really want to go see my grandmother because I don't know how many more birthdays she's going to have. But I feel horrible at the idea of leaving you here with tubes. And I was like, look, it's a minor surgery. I can move with the tubes. Go see your grandma. God forbid something happens. I would have to live with that. That's the last thing I want on my conscience. Go see your grandma. So she makes the arrangements. She goes and sees her grandma and then completely ghosts me. She doesn't come back.
Wow.
She doesn't return my calls. She doesn't return my texts. Um, we had a little bit of conversation at the very beginning of it. Uh, and then she just wouldn't give me any explanation, any reasoning, no closure. And Rod, I think that because she was the one person that went through my daughter's death with me in an intimate level, that I felt an abandonment issue with her.
Okay.
Already a weird abandonment issue with my daughter that I hadn't dealt with. I was still going through that underwater dream of what's going on, this surreal life of my daughter's gone. I'm now in California. What's happening? But I think that for various reasons, she didn't want to come back. And the combination of my daughter passing, her leaving, me moving across the country, and my health going all just kind of broke me at the same time.
Right.
And I think I really obsessed on getting her back because it was my way of dealing with the grief of my daughter. And it was something tangible. Like if I got her back, at least that would be okay again in my life, or something would be okay, because I couldn't get my daughter back. And so I think I put all this grief and intense um, suffering into getting this ex back, and she was ghosting me, so it was causing twice as much. You remember I called you during that time, and I was in a horrible place, and I've never suffered like that, Rod, and I think it just broke my ego. I think it broke my identity. I think I had to rebuild who I was with an understanding and a perspective of God and awareness in my life. God before this was always like that school ground monitor at recess that you kind of hide from and you know they're there. But
Right.
after this happened, I feel like I'm kind of sitting with the monitor and they're my friend now, and I'm not trying to hide, and I want to look at the people and make sure they're okay. And that's a huge perspective, and that happened because of this. But in the process of healing from this horrible place, it was so bad, Rod. And I was sitting on the edge of my bed with a loaded gun at one point, and I wanted to
Right.
die. I wanted to die. And I didn't want to, actually, I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live, I guess is the way,
Right.
right? And
No, I remember that time, and I remember we had a few very deep, long conversations.
yeah, and honestly,
And
you were one of the people that helped me through that, but on a like a deep level, I have another daughter that was 15 at the time, and her just being alive was part of what saved my life, because I could not do
right.
that to her after what happened to her sister, to have her dad do that. And just the idea of that just was so wrong. I couldn't do that. So, um, in a weird way, because my daughter passed away and the transformation I went through of basically going through a rebirth of losing false identity and gaining awareness, my first daughter, because of that, saved my life, because I'm a
Wow.
different person now than I was before she passed away. And I wouldn't be this person had she not passed away. And I could look at her with horrific grief and be bitter at the world. Or I can look at her and think that she did this for a bigger purpose. And I need to get the gems and the gold from that. And so in that aspect, I really give her credit for saving my life in a spiritual way, and my other daughter in a physical way. So I feel like both of my daughters saved my life, one spiritually and one physically. You asked the question of deep soul, and this all ties into that, because during this time, I was suffering so badly that I woke up and I felt like physical pain in my chest before I even woke up. And I would go to sleep listening to videos and passing out, because if I tried to go to sleep, it was just too intense. So I had to distract my mind. But at one point, I was able to get out of bed because I still had tubes, and I had a horrific incision from my belly button to my pubic bone about this long and about that wide. That every day the nurse would come in and rip out the sponge, clean it, and pack in a new sponge, put the tape on, and the suction that kept it, and then it would start to scab, and they'd take off the tape, rip out the sponge, and put a new one. I had to go through that every day, and it's very painful. And they don't give you pain medicine these days either because of the pain people abusing it or whatever. So in this horrible time where I didn't really have much to do other than suffer and get my wounds redressed, I started looking at ways to heal. I started meditating, sometimes up to 4 hours a day. I was reading self-help books. I was listening to Eckhart Tolle. I was reading his books, Deepak Chopra, reading his books. I read about 7 different books. I read some of your book. I didn't finish it, but I did read some of your book. Um, uh, I did AA. I did work the steps. I went to meetings. I did like everything. I went to grief therapy. I did everything I could just because when I was listening to an Eckhart Tolle video, I wasn't feeling that pain. But the second the video ended, boom, it was there. Okay.
Right.
So one of the things I found was when I started doing music, I could be by myself in front of my computer and I started doing it. And then when I stopped doing it, I realized, wow, I didn't have any pain that whole time I was doing it. And I would sit down to work on a song and 5 hours would pass. And it felt like an hour, but 5 hours would pass and I'd be like, wow, I just went through 5 hours of not suffering. And I put it into this music and something good is coming out of this suffering. And so Deep Soul actually became a collection of about 20 songs that I wrote and recorded during that time. And they're not all about healing and about my daughter and about my ex. They might be about, just a story, but it was written during that time and it was part of my healing. So the Deep Soul um, album and the Deep Soul project that I'm involved in is it's really personal to me because it was a creative endeavor that participated and I participated in that saved my life. And I really feel that I went through what I went through, Rod, because prior to going through this, my purpose was serving me and my ego and my acting and my music and my this and my that. And, I lived in fear and resentment and attachment and judgment and then, all these things. And since what's happened, that's all changed. My value system is completely changed around. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know where I was really going with that. I was kind of trail off with that.
No, no, thank you for sharing such a deeply personal story. Um, because again, there's people that right now are going through what you went through, and they need to be inspired that there is hope.
That's
Because as
what I
long
hope
as you have
music
hope,
is.
yeah, as long as you have hope, then there's a will.
I
I
guess
always
that's what I was
tell,
finished with, Rod, is prior to all this, I didn't have any purpose other than serving my.
right,
And since
right,
this all happened and in the process of the healing that I've done, I'm at a place now where I really feel my purpose is to um, be in service of what I understand God to be. Okay.
mm,
And I know when you say the word God, people instantly think religion or Christian or Catholic or whatever. I approached God without religion. That's how I
right.
found God.
From more of a spiritual place.
Yeah, but I believe that God is the creator and not like, oh, I'm in flow with the universe because God created the universe. And I want to be in flow with the creator and not one of the creations. So
Got it.
I do believe there is God 100%. And in finding that relationship with God, I felt like I have a purpose to help other people that might be suffering. Because to get out of my suffering, I also remember the steps and the tools and which ones worked and which ones didn't, and how I was able to hear them. And I have them logged. And I had a friend of mine that was going through a horrific breakup, and I was able to help him with just stuff I had learned from what I went through with my fiance ex, and it and just that I was able to help him and give him some peace, you know. Had I not been through what I went through, I wouldn't have had that for him. So I hope that God uses me and puts me in positions where my experiences um, are able to help people relate so they don't feel alone, and that maybe spirit will inspire me to inspire their spirit in some way where it helps with their suffering. Because I look around on this planet, Rod, and I see a different planet than I did before this all happened. I'm seeing a lot of people suffering. I see a lot of people living their identities unaware of the true love in their hearts, and they're trying to be what they think they are. And it's really like the third dimension. I said it the other day to Bobby as a joke. I said I'm allergic to the third dimension because I break out in suffering.
Mm.
And it's kind of what it is, because the more you're spending your time in your head partaking with third dimension stuff, you're getting out of spirit and out of real truth, and you're being distracted to some extent. And anytime you do that, you get attached to these ideas for your ego, which cause you suffering. And so what I try to do is help people realize that they aren't their thoughts. They don't have to be their thoughts. um, you can still feel your thoughts. You don't have to be a storm cloud with hail and lightning. You can be on the beach underneath it and still see it, still feel the rain, still hear it, but you don't have to be it. And just that awareness when people are suffering helps a lot with their suffering. It helps a lot because when they think they're it, they don't feel there's a way out. And when they gain awareness of it, then they know that it can pass. So just like that simple tool is something that hopefully I can help someone who's going through some suffering with. And if I'm not supposed to, then God will, make me a shoe salesman or something. I don't know. But right now it's music and acting, and I feel that I'm charged with this Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, this purpose of light that I want to help people. I know what it felt like to suffer like that, and I don't want anyone to feel that way. It is horrible, Rob. Horrible.
Right. It's like, I tell everyone, struggle, suffering is woven into the fabric of our existence.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as a life without struggle. And, but there, at the core of every problem is wisdom and opportunity. And if you're in a place where you can actually look for it, then your struggles are meaningful. And because there's nothing worse than going through struggle without any value in it, with no meaning in it. And so, what I hear you saying is that your struggle was just created immense insights that you used as a catalyst for change to blossom into another level of psychological and emotional existence. And it was an awakening for you. You mentioned Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose Potential. Fantastic book. And I'm just so glad that we're still talking, that we're here, and the fact that, you know, what you said was very right on from a number of, you know, therapy perspectives, healing perspectives. Um, and it made me think, it's like, okay, maybe in 10 years, Bentley's going to be a licensed therapist. you know,
Maybe
that's my new course, and
Bobby tells
we'll
me,
be in,
she's like, you
we'll be
should
in
be a
practice
therapist.
together.
Bobby keeps telling me I should be a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what makes a good therapist is not what school they went to, not even particularly what theoretical orientation that they follow, but a person's ability to connect to a person in a way that makes them feel safe and trusted, and and that understands suffering. Not really that we can never understand
I think
another
those are
person's
hand in hand.
suffering,
I think those are
but
hand
we
in
can
hand.
understand suffering. So I always tell patients, clients, I don't know your suffering. I don't know how you feel, but I know suffering, and I know how it made me feel. And that in some ways, there's a philosophy that we're all traumatized in some degree. And if that trauma is kind of frozen inside of us, that will affect us all through our lives. And so going on a journey of healing, of awakening, uh, is really about connecting to other life forces, souls that can help you thaw and melt that trauma within you. Therefore, you're finally liberated from it, and you sound very liberated.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very much more aware, and I'm aware of things that I never realized. Like I'm aware that, and I've traced it back to certain places, but I'm aware that I have some abandonment issues in my life from a childhood, and I'm aware that now I'm aware that those affect stupid things like in my relationship. Like if I'm sitting there and my girl gets up and walks out of the room suddenly, and I'm like, why didn't she tell me where she's going? That's like triggering childhood abandonment issue.
Yeah, that's the
Like
wounded child inside.
like this stuff I never would have thought of had I not started like really owning my side of the street. You know, prior to all this, Rod, if somebody said something that hurt my sensibilities or my pride or my ego in some way, I would either try to get them back or I would sit, I would sit there resenting them and planning different wonderful ways of getting them back. I'd never do any of them. But I could
Right.
spend a week or a month planning ways to get them back. And since I've gone through the experience I went through with my daughter passing and that whole time, these days, if someone says the exact same thing that would have offended my sensibilities before, if it offends my sensibilities, my first reaction is like a thing. But I've trained myself to not react to the reaction. And then I sit with it for a second and I feel how it made me feel. That made me want to do that reaction. And I realize that what they're saying, I must have some agreement to, because they didn't just call me purple. Because if they called me purple, I wouldn't care. But what they did call me, I care. So I must have some agreement to. And so if I have an agreement to what they said, then what I need to do is look at that agreement and see where I need healing. So when those things come up again, I'm not triggered in a way that's triggering all these unhealed things, but so I have a healing going on. And so that's a perfect example of prior to what happened, these people were demons in my life. After what happened, these people are angels because they've exposed something in me where I need to grow and where I have an opportunity to grow. And so now I'm seeing these people that I used to think you're an asshole. And now I'm in a way going, thank you for exposing me to myself and where I need to grow. That's a huge perspective shift. That's how
And
my
that also is towards the black belt of emotional skill, right? There's
I
levels
broke,
of emotional skill, and
Rod,
that's,
I broke.
yeah,
I broke.
yeah. Well, I think we both have.
Yeah. I mean, I know you've been through yours, so you understand a lot of what I'm talking about, I'm
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. And but yeah. So I love then how deep soul
Hey,
is this.
have you heard that story about the butterfly and the cocoon and the doctors?
Yes.
That kind of reminds me of what we're talking about here, of how the suffering does cause us freedom to
You
fly.
do you want to tell the story? You want me to?
Why don't you do it? Because I've heard myself tell it. I'd like to hear someone
All
else
right.
tell
Yeah, it's probably a little bit different version. So there's a man out hiking one day, and he comes along a cocoon, and he sees a butterfly inside struggling to get out. And he likes, oh, that's interesting. And he walks by it. And he decides, I'm going to go back in an hour. And he's seen that the butterfly has made a little bit of progress in getting out, but it's really still struggling. And so he keeps going back every hour, and the butterfly just seems struggling so bad. So he goes, you know what? I'm going to help this butterfly. He takes out his knife and he cuts the cocoon so that the butterfly can get out. And the butterfly, instead of flying out, falls to the ground and dies because the struggle of the butterfly getting out of the cocoon actually pushes fluid into its wings and actually creates the butterfly and transform him. The struggle is what gives him life. The
What a
struggle is
story.
what gives him meaning. And when the guy robbed the butterfly of the struggle, it killed him.
Wow. That's so cool.
Close
That's
version.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
that's
it is a great version. And again, when you understand that struggle is inherent in your day-to-day living and in your life, and actually is a gift because it can transform you into a wiser, stronger life form in this universe,
but Rod, it's what you
then
do with it. And the problem is
yeah,
especially in the younger cultures, we're being um, a large portion of people are being pushed away from inner responsibility and more towards immediate gratification and validation and endorphin hits. And so you end up getting, somebody who's in a bad relationship or whatever, and that person will say something that offends their sensibilities, and instead of grow, they'll go, oh yeah, well screw you. They'll erase that person and go get another person. And
swipe
it's just
one way, right?
but they just get the same problems with a different face and they don't even
Yeah,
realize it.
yeah,
And once they realize that it's the one thing that's the same in all those relationships is you, and start being accountable, then
right.
everyone can start to heal and relationships start to heal. I made this is the best relationship I've been in with Bobby. And um, I didn't jump into it. I took my time with it. We communicated all the way through it. And it got to the point where, not because I was being giddy in love, it got to the point where I saw the value in Bobby and my love for her. And I decided this is the girl that I won't leave no matter what. Even
Right.
in
You finally learned to trust yourself
even
and
in my
trust someone else.
marriages before, I always thought I could always get divorced.
Right.
That was a thought in me. With
Right.
Bobby, I thought I'm making this commitment that I'm not going to leave unless she cheats on me. And then it would have to be a discussion.
Yeah.
I'm making
Right.
the commitment I won't leave. And because of that, she has the safety to bring anything to me. And she knows that if I'm mad and pissed off at her, it doesn't mean we're breaking up. So she doesn't have to try to fix me and put a band-aid on it. It means that sometimes I don't like you. Sometimes I'm mad at you. But underneath it, I always love you. And I know that the like and the dislike and all that stuff changes. Thoughts change. And I'm not going to put my sword in the stake of, I need to move on. I can't deal with you. When the truth is, what I can't deal with is probably what you're exposing in me anyway. And so why don't I just look at that and stay with the relationship that has the value? She's loyal, she's loving, she's everything I could want in a woman. So
Yeah.
why change it if she offends my sensibilities and I don't want to look at myself? That's ridiculous.
Well, I tell people you have to become what you want your partner to be, or it
Yeah.
won't be a match. And so everything that you just described about her, she sees in you.
Yeah, and it's
And
also you were saying it have to be these a lot of people are like, oh, I can't wait till Prince Charming comes along or whatever. It's like, if he does, are you ready? Like, what have you been doing to get ready? Because that's the thing, Rod, and you're hitting it on the nail right there. Prior to this, I used to enter relationships thinking like, oh, this person completes me. They make me feel this way. This is a good thing. I like this for me. After everything I went through, I feel like, you know what? I'm solid with God. I love this person. Let me see what I can give to her. That's a complete difference of how I was, bro. This is the first relationship I've ever been like that in. It's
well, that's
powerful.
awesome that that the Bentley butterfly is alive and well on on the planet, man.
I'm just touched that you were there in that time of my life because you're really the only therapist that I knew. Everyone else was, armchair therapy and
Right.
different programs or
Well,
whatever.
that's a wonderful gift that you gave me, and you know, um, there was a time where I'd kind of come out of my own, struggle with cancer, and I just told God, the universe, I'm not ready to go yet. I have thousands of more souls to connect with. Don't rob me of my purpose. And so then just sitting and talking with an old friend, because we hadn't talked in a long time, was very gratifying for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, that, you know, there was still a connection there. There was still respect there. There was still a love there.
Yeah.
And so again, that's a beautiful gift. Thank you for giving me to that. I really appreciate it.
Well, you also helped me define something. And I remember I was driving on my phone, which I shouldn't have been, but I was talking with you in Santa Barbara, and you asked me what do I value most in my life, and I was saying this, that, and the other thing, and you said, Bentley, all your answers seem to be pointing to one thing, and that one thing appears to be love. And when you said that to me, a lot of different things clicked inside of me. So it was really a gift. You might not have realized it at that time, but it really was a gift. And part of me was feeling embarrassed about what happened with my fiance. And you telling me that made me feel it was okay, because it made me feel like if I made a fool of myself, at least it was for love. And if you're going to make a fool of yourself, what better reason than to do it over love? And it was you saying that I valued love that made me realize, okay, maybe I'm doing some things, but at least it's for love and it's my highest value. And so it's okay. And you gave me that. So thank you.
Well, thanks. I'm so happy that those words resonated with you.
They still do today.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, Bentley, it has been an amazing interview. Amazing to talk with you. And
And I'm so glad that you made it through your cancer stuff, Rod. I remember that time and I remember putting prayers out for you. And
thanks for
I just
that.
see you. I'm glad we're here talking right now. This is beautiful.
Yeah, we're both still alive on the planet.
We're still kicking.
We're still trying to figure it out. And
Energizer Bunny.
yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. Look forward to the next time we're again in person. And for people that want to find Bentley and his music, your Instagram is
Mitchum on top.
all righty, brother. Well, continued success and love, and I'll see you soon.
And you too. And let's jam.
Let's do it, baby.
Come over
Let's
on the
walk
floor.
out. All
All
right,
right.
man. Take care.
Thank you.